When I was a teenager, I had a hard time controlling my emotions. Particularly, I had trouble dealing with anger. I remember this one time that I didn't get what I wanted and I locked my mom and my brother in our walk-in storage room. And then I punched the door. Looking back, this was such a dumb response. Clearly, I was out of control. I had allowed anger to take over my behavior and it didn't lead to a very good outcome. It was a pretty bad outcome, in fact. But once I became more aware of what triggered my emotions and how those emotions influenced my behavior, I was able to start exercising more control over my response to these emotions. So can I just ask you, when was the last time that you got really angry? Perhaps you said something or you did something that you wouldn't do when you were not angry. Would you say that when you embraced your anger, you produced a positive outcome? Did it do any good in the long term? The answer is probably no. Like the example that I gave when I punched the door, of course, I hurt my hand, and there's no benefit in that. And it also negatively affected my relationship with my mom and my brother, which I then had to fix later on. When people get angry, they often say or do things that they normally wouldn't do, and it often cascades into things that they would later regret. So my question to you is, are you in control of your emotions? Or are your emotions controlling you? If you're being tired of being overwhelmed by fear, anger, anxiety, or other emotions that may negatively influence your everyday life, I have good news. You can learn to effectively deal with it and not let it disrupt your life. And I will try to address it in this video. First, let's start with what emotions are exactly. An emotion is a conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. This is really interesting. What this means is that an external factor can trigger an internal response. For example, you're watching a horror movie. All of a sudden, everything goes quiet. And then suddenly something really scary happens and you feel afraid. There's this external stimulus, whatever intense thing that shows up on the screen, which caused you to experience an internal feeling. And then you cringe to protect yourself or something. Your body manifests a physiological response to your internal feeling of fear. And it's not even real. It's a movie. There's no real danger. But still, it affects you. There's even people that have died of a heart attack while watching a horror movie in the movie theater. Now, you may say that you can't control your emotions. Sometimes an emotion just arises and there's nothing I can do about it. And that's true to some extent. You may not always be able to prevent an emotion from arising, but you can control how you respond to it. It is critical to recognize that we can influence both our subjective experience in a particular situation as well as our behavioral response to an emotion. For example, you may get angry, but you don't have to punch the door. You don't have to hurt the other person, either by your words or physically. If you feel sad, you don't have to indulge in comfort food or alcohol or drugs even. There's better ways to deal with these things. Ways that will help you to maintain your composure and lead to good outcomes for yourself and other people. And the thing is, that's difficult. And often we shy away from things that are difficult because it's much easier to just act in the moment and strongly express an emotion, which seemingly leads to short-term relief, but it doesn't solve anything in the long term. And this is clearly demonstrated by scientific research. Recognizing your emotions and adequately dealing with them is a critical skill in your personal as well as your professional life. And it is often referred to as emotional intelligence. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite get the attention it deserves. For example, in universities and on the job market, we put a lot of emphasis and place a lot of value on IQ rather than EQ, while emotional intelligence is essential to become successful in life. If you never learn to master your emotions or your mind, then life will be very difficult. With every setback or everything that doesn't go the way you wanted, you'll have troubles. But if you learn to deal with your emotions, you'll find that your life will be amazing. And for you to deal with your emotions in a more productive and effective way, in a way that helps you to move forward in life, to maintain positive relationships and increase your happiness, you first got to learn to recognize your emotions. And to do that, you got to learn to observe and reflect, which enables you to increase your awareness of sensations in your body, your thoughts, and your emotions. And it enables you to take a step back from disturbing feelings and experiences. If you want to experience mindfulness, I've produced a guided mindfulness session, which I will link up here and in the description below. Then, when you become more aware of changes or sensations in your body or your mind, you can influence these feelings by focusing on your breathing. I mean, what happens when you feel aroused and angry? Your heart starts beating faster, your breathing goes faster. Now, what's interesting is that it works the other way around too. So when you slow down your breath, your heart rate will decrease and you will feel calm and peaceful. Your breath is a very powerful tool. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, always remember to focus on your breathing and bring it back into this slow and gentle rhythm. If your emotions are too overwhelming, then step away if you need to. One of my mentors always makes the point that we can't deal with problems in a state of heightened emotions. It's far better to just acknowledge it and say, I'm not in a good headspace to deal with this right now, and it will likely not lead to a good outcome. I will step away for a moment, and when I've regained my calmness, we can then discuss this further. It sounds so simple, but how many people are actually doing this? If everybody would do this, man, things would be so different. Finally, focus on the factors that you can influence or control. It's not useful to get upset about things beyond your control. You can't change them anyway, so getting upset is not going to help in any way. Rather, when you can influence or control something, you don't have to get upset because at least you can do something about it and you can improve the situation. If you want to learn how to do this, watch my video in which I share one very useful technique to become more resilient. I'll link it up here and in the description below. Now, to sum things up, you can't control your emotions, but you can control how you respond to them. You can learn to observe sensations, feelings, thoughts, and recognize how they influence your behavior. You can use your breath to decrease the intensity of an emotion and your response to it. You can learn to pause, step away, and come back when you regain calmness, and you'll act in a way that leads to brilliant outcomes. Speaking of brilliant outcomes, have you heard of my Brilliant Life Habits Masterclass? It's a free masterclass in which I teach 5 brilliant life habits so you can be resilient, find clarity, and experience great purpose and meaning. If you want to take your personal growth to the next level, you should take this masterclass. Just visit brilliantlifehabits.com or click the link in the description below. And I look forward to seeing you there. Go make a difference.